Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Spring 2021 virtual conference. We are on the last session of the day, second to last day. So we got two more sessions tomorrow. I am Rachel Alton, the online community manager for the Gypsy Nurse. I'm here with Steve Curtin, our CEO of the Gypsy Nurse. Hello, Steve.
Hey, Rachel, third time today. Hello. Great to see you. And this is exciting. We are moving into our last session of the day, and this should be a great one with Paula Michelle to talk about nursing away from the bedside. So, as we were talking before we got into the session, we've had a lot of great sessions this week, everything from retirement planning to picking the best agency and recruiter to RV life, van life, cooking, which was a particular favorite of mine. So this is going to be another great session. So I look forward to it. It's been a great week, and there's still one more day left.
Yes, definitely. This topic is going to be great. A lot of people have been asking about how to leave the bedside, especially with the COVID. People had to resort to different types of nursing jobs. So this is going to be perfect for you to kind of continue if you kind of want to stay closer to home or not work so much like in the hospital setting so much. So it's going to be a great session. I know, Steve, you have a few things that you want to say to the community. I'll let you take a moment for that.
I do, Rachel. Thank you. Before we get started, as CEO of the Gypsy Nurse, I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and I want to thank our travel nurse community for all that you do, particularly during this COVID pandemic. The Gypsy Nurse's mission is to support travel nurses, and we hope you find this session and the others we have planned this week to be informative and helpful in your travel nursing journey. Please remember to visit thegypsynurse.com's spring virtual conference agenda under the events tab for a full list of all of our virtual events this week. Please bookmark thegypsynurse.com as your source for travel nursing resources, including over 150,000 jobs from over 65 top agencies, housing options, and great content from experts that we publish daily to help you on your travel nursing journey. As a reminder, all of these sessions will be recorded and available on demand on our website after each session on our 2021 virtual events page. So if you join us late, you want to send it to a friend or just review information afterwards, all of the sessions this week, including the ones coming up tomorrow, will be available on our website. The Gypsy Nurse is the #1 destination for travel nurses, and we want to thank all of our travel nurses in our community for their support. I would also like to thank Nurse Paula Michelle for donating her time today to discuss nursing away from the bedside, and Kevin Grimes from our sponsor Nurses 24/7 for their support of today's session. So thank you all very much. And Rachel, back to you.
Yeah, definitely. And we have some giveaways as well. I'm just going to show you just how you can win some great things. The first thing you can do is log or join on thegypsynurse.com. That's going to get you entered to win a $100 Amazon gift card. Now you can get another chance to win that gift card by going to our virtual conference. So you just come to events tab, Spring 21 virtual conference, which this is going to live here for quite a bit of time, forever. So you can check that out later. You're just going to come down here, and like Steve said, you can click on any of these tabs and you can watch any of these on demand. You can see the ones that are upcoming tomorrow, which is dogs and coffee. And like I said before, those are my two favorite things.
Two of your favorite topics in the whole world, right?
Yes. And so once you get down here, you can register for the virtual conference. Let us know what ones were your favorites, which ones you're looking forward to, and we will keep you up to date on upcoming conferences and upcoming virtual sessions that we'll be having, as well as, just keeping you up to date with our live events. We will also be giving away a Amazon gift card, $100, for any interactions or comments in this session or the sessions before. You can be entered to win for those. So be sure to comment, ask questions, share whatever you want to do. You'll be entered to win. Again, we would like to thank Nurses 24/7 and Kevin. We'll bring on Kevin so he can.
There he is.
Yeah, hi.
How are you guys? How are you?
Good. Kevin, is it warmed up in New Jersey yet, or is it still cold? I know you're based in New Jersey. You said earlier today you were freezing.
I was going to give you guys an update. It is a little bit colder now than it was this afternoon here. So we're getting a reminder of winter here in the northern New Jersey area.
Oh boy. Well, that's not good. Hopefully the weekend's better. But listen, good to see you, and thank you so much for your support of this conference and the support of Nurses 24/7. This is great, and we're really pleased to have you on as a sponsor.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. And I want to thank Steve and Rachel again for giving us the opportunity to sponsor today, but also giving us the opportunity to be part of the entire virtual spring conference. We learned a lot this week. We took part in just watching your live sessions. They were fantastic. We're looking forward to, doing this for the upcoming years as well. And I would definitely be remiss if I didn't just thank all the travel nurses out there for everything they've done for all of us during this pandemic. Without you guys and being on the front line, I don't even know where we would be, but better days are ahead, and
Let's hope
excited
so.
for our next speaker and to jump on with you guys at the end and just introduce Nurses 24/7 a little bit more.
Yeah, great. We look forward to that. Well, thank you so much. All right, so now let's move on to the star of this session. She is a pediatric travel nurse and a gypsy nurse mentor. She's been traveling for 3 years and a nurse for 5. You can follow along on her gypsy nurse adventure on Instagram at Hybrid Flower. She is our gypsy nurse mentor, Paula. You've probably seen her a couple times as well if you watch our live events. Hi, Paula.
Hey, Paula.
Hi,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, we love having you on.
Good to see you. Good to see you. And we were just remarking earlier, this is going to be a very exciting topic. We've had a great week of events. We still have one more day tomorrow with a couple of interesting sessions. Those will be a little bit lighter. One is going to be about how to make a great cup of coffee. Another part of it's going to be about traveling with pets. So we're
Important things to know, though, for sure.
Absolutely. Nurses need to know about traveling with pets and how to make a great cup of coffee. But this session is very interesting, a little bit different than some of the other ones we've covered before. Paula, you're going to talk about nursing opportunities away from the bedside and how that can kind of recharge and re-energize your nursing career. And I think a lot of people are going to be interested in that, certainly based on the events of the past 12 months or so with the pandemic. We are seeing, and I know you are seeing, a lot of discussion, a lot of articles, a lot of news reports about nurses that frankly are burnt out, that with the pandemic, they are overworked, they are overtired, they're mentally stressed out, and they have been, working 24/7 to try and provide, patient care during this time, but it takes its toll. And I think a lot of nurses are feeling like, they're drained and they need to recharge the battery. So very interested in hearing your thoughts and kind of your journey towards opportunities for nurses away from the bedside.
Yes, absolutely. Everything you said is correct. There was already a shift in nursing before COVID as far as recognizing burnout. I'll say with the millennial generation of nurses, we are more focused on our mental health as well as our physical health and all of those things versus the generations before us. So burnout is a big thing that we try to address. And COVID, the past year working with COVID has just accelerated the burnout that was already there. And I think like a lot of the research is showing and a lot of the articles are saying that there is going to be a mass exodus of nurses that leave the bedside. If they haven't done so already, it's going to happen probably this year and over the next couple of years because they just don't have the, I don't want to say they don't have the compassion anymore, but it's just nursing is already, it takes so much of you away. You're giving so much of yourself constantly. So with COVID, it was just exacerbated, right? So now you have a lot of nurses that are no longer working in the hospital, that are no longer working in the bedside, that are looking for other opportunities, whether that's going back to school or doing something else. It's just change is good. And even if you're just leaving the bedside temporarily, a break is always something that we can benefit from as bedside nurses.
Paula, tell us a little bit about your to date your travel nursing story. You've been travel nursing now for a while. I know you're not currently doing that, but can you talk about your journey as a nurse in terms of travel nursing, some of the assignments, and kind of get us up to date in terms of the present?
Yeah, so I started travel nursing in 2018, only doing pediatric travel. I came from pediatric step-down ICU, neurosurgery, things like that. and then transitioned over to general peds and neonatal ICU travel. Did that in California, was there for about 19 months, worked 4 assignments in that time only in California, because I came all the way from Atlanta to there. Was at San Diego, LA, San Francisco, and then back to San Diego. So I really enjoyed my time in California. I loved travel nursing, fell absolutely in love with it. And then I moved back to Atlanta. It was supposed to just be for like a break to kind of reset at the end of 2019. And then I got a PRN job at the Children's Hospital here in Atlanta, where I started off as a staff nurse, working PRN there. And then the plan was to go back to travel nursing in 2020. But then when COVID happened, it didn't really, it's so interesting with nursing and like how vast it is, because COVID really hit nursing in all areas. Even if you weren't working with COVID patients like myself, it wasn't really affecting pediatric patients like it was adult patients. So I think I only had the number of COVID patients I had, I could count on one hand. It was very small for when I first started working with it. And I left the hospital at like the end of April, not by choice, because census had bottomed out. That means like there weren't enough patients to support the number of nurses there. And then when you're PRN, you're like the first ones to be furloughed or cut from the staff, because they want to keep the staff nurses working because they're benefited employees. Usually with PRN employees, you're non-benefited, right? So you're going to be the first ones to get cut. So I was furloughed at first for only 3 months. So at that time I was like, okay, no big deal. Furloughed, I'll just take a travel assignment. Couldn't find a travel assignment anywhere because it was happening nationwide within pediatrics and NICU. There were no jobs. I mean, no jobs. It was crazy. And then the very few jobs there was like 100 travelers being submitted for it. So even if you had like the best resume, you probably still wouldn't get that assignment if you wanted to.
Right.
So that was very frustrating. I mean, like very frustrating to the point where I was like, I'll go anywhere. I'll go to freaking Idaho and work. I just like needed to work. It was so frustrating. And it was a hard time for me personally because my husband was deployed overseas. So I was dealing with that also. So I was really trying to work and like stay focused on something else. So yeah, I couldn't find a job, couldn't find an assignment. And that was a lot because I work with like 11 different travel companies. So to literally be in contact with 11 of my recruiters almost every day, and for them to tell me, I submitted you to like 15 jobs and I haven't heard anything. And I'm just like, oh, wow. Okay.
Well, I'll tell you, for some perspective, as you know, the Gypsy Nurse works with a variety of different agencies, and one of the things that our sponsors do is they'll post jobs on our website. And I do recall around this time last year, normally we have anywhere between 150 and 175,000 jobs on our website in a normal year. And this time last year, I think the number of jobs on our site went down to about 50,000. So similar to what you're saying, we saw a tremendous drop temporarily in travel nursing opportunities out there. In large part, I think a lot of facilities just didn't really know what to do or where their needs were. I also think too, as you know, a lot of elective surgeries and those sorts of things were canceled. So the needs just dropped. However, as you well know, fast forward to January of 2021, we had about 275,000 jobs on our site. So we basically almost doubled for the need. So as kind of an observer of the industry, we saw the same thing from the Gypsy Nurse side.
Yeah, it was very frustrating. And it was just like peds and like you said, with surgery, like if you work, like all the travel nurses that work OR, PACU, like they couldn't get jobs either. There were no jobs to be had. And they were canceling elective surgery in pediatrics as well. And that's a huge patient population for peds. So you didn't have kids, and then because kids weren't in school, that's also like affecting, because you're not having kids getting as sick, getting into as many accidents. There's no broken arms. So that's like plays into a whole big thing, right? So I ended up having to look into local travel, which I had never done before. I didn't know anything about it, didn't know anything about like local travel agencies or anything like that. So I ended up finding a local travel agency based out of Atlanta that was doing staffing for COVID. It was like COVID crisis staffing for the Department of Health. So I ended up getting on with them doing COVID case management. And I was there. And it was so funny because I actually got hired to do COVID testing, and I showed up the first day and they asked me if I could do case management. And I was like, well, I've never done case management. And they said they'll train me. And I was like, okay. And it was 5 days a week, 40 hours a week. And I did that for almost 9 months through like the real heart of the pandemic. And it was all with COVID patients that had been hospitalized here in Georgia.
Wow.
And then it was a lot of public health education on the public about COVID-19 and isolation. And then it was also working with families that had had family members die from COVID and dealing with that, and lots of contact tracing and employment. And it was a lot. It was very involved. But I learned a lot, and I appreciate the opportunity. I didn't know anything about public health before that job. Besides what I learned in nursing school, I'd never worked with it personally. So it was definitely a whole new avenue of nursing that I got to explore.
I can imagine it was probably, just as an aside, I can imagine that in and of itself was probably a bit depressing, a bit stressful as well. I mean, and probably overwhelming.
It was definitely, yeah, it was a lot. And then I had meetings, like 3 meetings a week, meetings with like the board officials for the state and all kinds of other things, because the CDC guidelines were changing almost every day. Yes. And then we have to update all the protocols and everything else, and working with the infection preventionist team that work with the local hospitals as far as what the standards are for PPE. And it was so involved. And like I said, I had no idea that like I knew about that area nursing, but I didn't know exactly what all it entailed until I started doing that. So it did carry me for 9 months, and it was an assignment the entire time. They just kept extending me because the COVID cases in Georgia were so high. So they just had a need constantly. And then that ended in December. And then I did a vaccination contract, which is another great idea for people that are looking for something outside of the bedside. Yeah. There's tons of vaccination contracts right now through multiple companies. I'm not sure if we have any listed on the Gypsy Nurse page right now, but there are several different companies offering vaccination assignments, and those are great. Like some of them you're going to work like 48 hours, 40 hours. Some of them are 60 hours. It just depends on where it is and the need. But I mean, you're just giving vaccinations all day. So it's a lot of running, but it's not as mentally exhausting as bedside nursing is. So it's a great break that I encourage people to look into if you still want to work, but you don't want to work in the hospital. Like if you still are trying to like make some decent money and you still want to stay busy, but you just need a break from everything that is bedside nursing, vaccination contracts are really, really great. I did that for almost 3 months. Yeah, I did that for almost 3 months. I would have kept going, except I was doing it in the winter here and it was outside. So I was working in like 40-degree weather every day, trying to draw up vaccines. That was a little challenging. And then also that was through the Department of Health as well, through the same agency that I was with. I just changed jobs basically, but I still stayed with them. And then this last contract that I just finished doing was for telehealth advice nursing. Oh, yeah. And that is a whole nother avenue of nursing that I never considered before, that I didn't know anything about. That was also way more involved than I had anticipated. Because when I first started it, I was like, oh, this is going to be pretty easy. People just call in and say that they have these symptoms, and I'm going to just, tell them, okay, well, do this. You have a fever. Okay, take Tylenol, drink fluids, like rest. I thought it was going to be very straightforward. No, I was totally wrong. It was, I did it for peds and I did it for adults. So that was a lot of medication education for like blood pressure medication, insulin regimens for diabetic patients, follow-up care for dialysis patients, follow-up care for chemotherapy patients, surgery scheduling, post-op complications from surgery. So I learned a lot with that, and I only did that for almost 3 months. So, and that's a different avenue of nursing for people to look into, as well as remote or telehealth nursing that I recommend.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned telehealth because we had we had some guests on an earlier show, and we were talking just about travel nursing opportunities in general. And one of the things that was pointed out, probably because of the opportunities coming into travel nursing post-pandemic, will be this aspect of telehealth. I mean, I think everybody probably had some sort of telehealth experience during the past year, whether it was a doctor visit or whatever, but it's kind of now, it seems to accelerate it into a career opportunity, as you said, is probably something that not that many people think about, but it seems like there's going to be lots of opportunities. It's not just a one-time thing. The future, there will be future opportunities in telehealth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially for nurses. And there's lots of opportunity currently it's really privatized right now with health insurance companies. So if you do want to look into a telehealth position, I would suggest checking there. So big insurance companies like Kaiser, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Humana, they all have nurses that they hire just for telehealth, that do triage, that do appointment scheduling, that do all of those things. And then you'll find some big corporations that have like multiple doctor's offices and things like that. They will also have a telehealth department that'll triage their patients as well, schedule appointments, home care, follow-up care, things like that. So that's definitely something to look into as well if you want to work from home. It was really nice being able to work from home for almost 3 months. I
was going to say, yeah, I would assume I would assume you would have been working from home, right? Yeah.
I was working from home, and it was really nice, especially considering when I was doing my vaccine contract, it was in the city of Atlanta. I live 2 hours south. So I was literally driving 2 hours to work for like a few days back to back, and then driving 2 hours home. So after doing that for 3 months, I was really happy to work from home for 3 months. That was a really nice change.
Well, as we're talking here, the questions and comments have started to come in. So a couple of things. You Paula, had mentioned about vaccine assignments, and Rachel behind the scenes did a quick search on our site, and she provided some links for those that are interested in our chat room here. There are lots of vaccine assignments on the Gypsy Nurse site. So that's good. If anybody wants some sort of, essentially taking a break from the bedside and going into that mode of opportunity, there's lots of vaccine jobs on the site. So that's one comment. We've got a couple from Jaleesa. Jaleesa says, she was our first commenter today. She said, "Hey, Paula, for this topic, I'm an ICU nurse and I've got an opportunity to take a clinic RN job. If I find that I don't like it, is it difficult to get back to the bedside with a gap in ICU experience?" That's a great question.
That is a good question. I would say it depends on how much ICU experience you have. If you've been doing that for at least like 2 or 3 years, then you have a good handle on what you're doing. You have a pretty good foundation. I think if you take 3 months off and then go back to it, you should be totally fine. When I was doing bedside nursing, I think the longest stint I took off in between assignments was 4 months. And then besides having that general nervousness that you have on the first day of any assignment, I pretty much jumped right back into it. Everything it was like riding a bike. I remembered all my meds and how to give them and the steps I need to take for certain things. So I think you'll be fine. If you feel like you need a break, especially mentally and physically, you are benefiting not only yourself, but your patients as well. Because when you're burned out, you cannot give 100% patient care. That's the biggest thing I try to stress to nurses. Like if you are burned out, you cannot give 100% patient care. You just can't, because you're exhausted. So it's more important that you take care of yourself, rest, refresh, and then come back to it. And then you can provide like the best level of care, which is what your patients deserve.
That's great advice. And this kind of goes to a comment that Jaleesa says. She says, nurses are treated so poorly and we're the first generation that are not having it anymore. So Jaleesa is basically saying, you know what, there's a whole generation of nurses out there that are just tired of being treated poorly, and things need to change. So I think it kind of goes to what you're saying, right? You really need to put yourself in a position where you can recharge and refresh, and that way ultimately you'll be able to provide better patient care and do the job better.
Right, you do. And I think facilities, when I say facilities, I mean like hospitals, they're going to, if they haven't already, they're starting to come to the point to where they really understand that nurses are undervalued and underpaid, considering that we do 80% of the workload for the patient.
Yeah.
So I think that is come to the light of attention for hospitals, especially when you have these hospitals that are maxed out with COVID patients and they're having to bring in travel nurses because their staff are quitting because they're so
Right.
burnt out. Or you have brought in travelers that are making way more than the staff. So then you have the staff like, well, why am I going to stay here making half of what this other nurse is making when I can just go travel too? So I think facilities and like big corporation hospitals have come to this conclusion, or they're going to come to it very soon, that they're going to have to do something as far as raising the pay for nurses, fixing the hours, and then just staffing. Staffing is a big thing. Like,
yeah.
Understaffed facilities is not safe for the patients, it's not safe for the nurse, and it leads to burnout.
Well, we certainly, from what we see in the Gypsy Nurse, particularly with our Facebook network discussion group, which I know you're a member of, essentially the aspect of understaffed facilities and just the lack of a national staffing or nurse to patient ratio staffing requirement is a big topic, and people are very, very concerned about that. I have to think, number one, it's dangerous, and number two, it would lead to an incredible amount of burnout when you're a nurse that are, particularly as you get into critical care and you're handling more patients than you really should be handling. It's going to be an incredible amount of pressure and lead to tremendous amount of mental strain and burnout.
Right. And that's only gotten worse with COVID. I mean, because it was already bad before COVID.
Right.
Because that was the main reason that I went to California, because here in the South, especially in the East Coast, but here in the South, we don't have patient ratios like on the West Coast. Totally different. Even in pediatrics, like here in the South, for like a general peds floor, you have 5 patients. In California, you might have 4. You're usually going to have 3 though. But here you're going to have 5, maybe 6. And it's just like the difference is crazy. So you have that and then with adult nursing, you can have like 8 or 10 patients, and you don't have that out there. And then with COVID, it just got worse because now you have nurses that are getting sick. So you have fewer nurses working, and then you have double the amount of patients. So yeah, a lot of nurses are definitely like exhausted, burnt out physically, mentally, emotionally.
Well, and I think too, particularly early on, and you alluded to it, at the beginning of our discussion, when COVID first hit, and I believe you and I had a conversation about this going back, several months ago. There were the whole lack of protective gear and just the unknowns. There was no vaccine. I mean, that has to scar somebody. When even if you were lucky enough not to be infected, it still, I think, that stays in your mind. Working with those patients, seeing all of that trauma, dealing with the death, there's nothing that you can do about it. And then worrying about your physical health, your partner's physical health. Am I going to be bringing this home to my partner or my kids or my family? I can't imagine the strain. I mean, many people have likened it to, post-traumatic stress disorder for people in the service that have served in combat. I can imagine it's a very similar thing for nurses that have been on the front lines.
Yeah, I've had a lot of friends go through a lot of things, especially my friends that have, I had one friend that actually went from pediatrics, but then when the census dropped, like she was also furloughed, and then she switched over to adult ICU to do COVID ICU, and she did it for a year. She just left because she did it for a year, and like that was too much. And I'm just so proud of her for being able to do it for like that whole year and like get through it. I can't speak to how, because I only worked in it, like I said, in the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then I was basically forced out of it. And then when I had the opportunity to go back to the hospital, I had just come to this point where I didn't want to, because I felt like it was better for my mental health and physical health, that after 5 years of bedside nursing, that I was just kind of done.
Yeah.
And I have this conversation with a lot of nurses, especially nurses that have been nurses for like 15, 20 years. And they're like, oh, well, I can't believe that you just, left after 5 years. And I'm like, yeah, but at the same time, like I did very high acuity pediatrics, and kids now that are in the hospital, they're very sick. They're super sick. It's not like they just have their appendix out or like a broken arm. Like those kids go home the same day.
Yeah.
But I've had patients with like multiple underlying conditions, multiple lines, like just crazy care. And when you're doing that for like a 3-year-old, that just tolls on you like emotionally. Like I've coded kids like doing CPR on like an infant or on like a 3-year-old like multiple times, like in one night, like that. After 5 years, you're just like, okay, I think I'm done. Or at least me. That's just me though. Yeah. Like I said, I prioritized my mental health and what was better for me. And it was to pursue other avenues of nursing and still be helpful and beneficial to others.
Yeah, dealing with children as a dad myself, I don't know how you do it and did it. It just, to me, is unbelievable. I give you all the credit in the world. I don't know, for being a nurse is incredibly difficult. I am not a nurse myself. I do have some nurses in my family, and I have been around, travel nursing for a number of years now. But first of all, I don't know how you guys do it as nurses. Second of all, doing, the pediatric nursing and working with very sick children is just, it's heartbreaking, and I don't know how you guys do it. So, thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you did. But it's an amazing thing. I can just imagine it's incredibly stressful and it stays with you.
It does. So, I mean, I can relate to the nurses that have worked in the COVID ICU and all the loss and the things that they have dealt with. And it's like I said, but you have to make that personal decision and say to yourself, okay, now I need a break. Like now it's time to step away and rest and reset and maybe stay away or maybe go back. I don't know. But you have to take that time away though, because if you just stay in it, then you're just wearing yourself down to the point to where you're going to break. Yeah. You're going to break down at work during a shift or on your way home, or it's going to start to impede on your family life, your social life, the relationships you have with your friends, with your loved ones, with your significant others. Like after a while, that all that stuff starts to come in, it's harder to keep out. So that's another reason that like breaking from the bedside after a while, even if it's for like a month or two, it's so beneficial for your overall health.
Did you ever consider leaving the profession entirely and doing something entirely different? Or did you feel that you want to continue to still be a nurse, but just again, move away from the bedside into something different?
No, I never considered leaving the profession. And honestly, I had full intention of, initially when I started working with the health department, I had full on intention of going back to the hospital and resuming everything. But when they extended my furlough, I couldn't go back. So I just got into this new role and that became even more interesting. And then I found out even more things that I could do. And even my husband, when he came home and we were home together, and he was just like, you're just in such a better mood. He's like, you're happier. And he's like, I just see like such a difference in you. And I really took that as I was like, wow, I think the last year of me working in the hospital, I was just like not in a good place. Yeah. The bedside definitely took me to this place of just not being very happy. But I think you get so stuck in the like day to day or shift to shift routine. And you're just like, if I just get through this shift, if I just get through the next shift, then I have like 4 or 5 days off. And but then you're still back at work. And if it gets to the point to where you don't want to go to work, you're using up all your PTO days because you need a personal health day. Nurses know what I mean when I say that. You need a personal health day, a mental health day. If you're taking more of those than you should be, then that should say something as far as it's time for a break. It's time to really step away. And there's so many other opportunities that you can look into where you are still valued as a nurse. You can still use your nursing knowledge. You can still use your assessment skills. You are still just as good of a nurse if you do not work in a hospital. And I think a lot of nurses don't understand that.
We've talked about telehealth opportunities. We've talked about case management opportunities. We've talked about kind of what appears to be more of short-term opportunities relative to vaccination clinics. What are some other away from the bedside nursing opportunities that you've heard of or you've been directly exposed to that you think people might want to look into if they'd like to move away from the bedside?
I'm outpatient nursing, as I think Lisa brought up. Outpatient nursing, if you want to go work in a clinic, if you want to work in a doctor's office, urgent cares, they all need nurses. Like I said, the health department needs nurses all the time. You have to look into your own state, obviously, and like their health department, how they function. But like here in Georgia, the health department, they have clinics set up throughout the state, and those are all nurse run. And they see patients, they treat patients. Then you also have like for the health department and as well for the hospital too, if you want to still work in the hospital but not at the bedside, there's several roles that you can take as a nurse, whether you want to go into management, education, if you want to be a nurse educator, infection preventionists, those are all nurses in hospitals. Those are great opportunities. And case managers and infection preventionists, you can do that as a traveler. They have travel assignments that do that as well. Certain agencies will staff that. So if you still want to keep traveling and you want to change into something like that, that's also an option available to you as well.
One of the things that I have experienced it here in the town that I am in the Boston area. One of the needs that has come up are school nurses. I don't believe there's too many travel opportunities for those, but I think school nursing with COVID and COVID testing and all those sorts of things. And I can say in my town we've had some turnover in terms of school nurses retiring and so forth. I would think that that's another potential opportunity as well.
School nursing is another one. Home health, if you want to do home care. I did home health as a nurse tech. That wasn't for me, but a lot of people really love it. It can be very flexible as far as the hours you want to work. You can stay local. So it has some benefits as well if you want to do that. If you have experience with infusions as far as chemotherapy or dialysis centers, you can do dialysis nursing and you just work at that dialysis clinic, as well as chemo infusions. You can do that for different hospitals, and that's away from the bedside. There's so much you can. Outpatient surgery centers, you can do that. There's so much opportunity out there. You just have to be willing to think outside of what you have been trained to think that this is what a nurse is and this is what a nurse does. Like there's so much more than that.
Well, I think too, particularly in the New England area, we have lots of assisted living facilities, lots of unfortunately, memory care and, those sorts of things. And I know that, oftentimes, and I can tell from personal experience with family members, they will often employ a number of different nurses and registered nurses to assist there. So I would imagine there's a lot of opportunities there as well.
There are. And then if you are the entrepreneur type, there are so many nurses out there that have started their own businesses. Whether it's like a nurse related clothing line or whether it's like health coaching. A lot of nurses go into that. I'm not too well versed on the things about that, but that's a big thing. I know, like health coaching, life coaching, you can do that as a nurse. A lot of nurses have started their own like infusion, like IV hydration setups and things like that. They go to people's homes and do like IV therapy. You can do that. If you like the cosmetic route, you can get certified to do Botox and all kinds of cosmetic procedures. You can do that at a day spa. You can do that in people's homes. And those are just like certifications that you have to go to the class for and get certified in. And you can do all that as a nurse.
Yeah, lots of great ideas, and I'm starting to see some great comments here from some people that are joining us. So you're definitely hitting the mark here with some of your comments. We have a comment from Gail, and Gail says lots of opportunities with COVID or due to COVID, as we talked about. And then she says you were able to gain experience and training. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing, Paula. So you made a nice. You definitely resonated with Gail. Jaleesa talking about some of the trauma that nurses face. Jaleesa says, we nurses are great compartmentalizers, putting
right.
putting the COVID trauma in the back of our mind, but it has to come out at some time, and it's terrible
Right.
for our mental health.
Right. Right. And that's what I was saying is
Yeah.
like, you put it away, but then it's going to pop up, and it's either going to pop up while you're at work, or it's going to pop up while you're at home, and it's going to slowly start to creep into your personal life. So like I said, if you've come to a point to where you're having to take so much personal time away from work because you just cannot be there, then
Yeah.
that is a sign that you need to take a break. And there's nothing wrong with taking a break. It doesn't make you a bad nurse. It doesn't mean you don't care. You have to take care of yourself. I'm like, we get taught from day one to take care of others, but we never get taught to take care of ourselves. And that's something that we have to start taking accountability for and realizing that we matter too.
What would you say would be, at least either from personal experience or what you've experienced with other nurses that are going through this, but what would you say would be some of the telltale signs of burnout? What are some of the warning signs, some of the flags that come out and say, you know what, it's time to take a break? Because I would imagine there are times where people don't really even know it, but other people notice it in terms of their behavior or demeanor or how they're feeling. What are some of the warning signs that you would see?
I would say signs of burnout would be if you're extremely irritable on your off days, if you have no energy or no desire to want to do things on your off days, like even things that you have to do, but like you can't get out of bed or you can't get off the couch. Like that goes beyond exhaustion.
Yeah.
So you're just unmotivated, I think is a big thing. And you're just depressed. Like even if you try to hide your depression, your family members, your significant other, they're going to pick up on it that you're just not yourself. And then if you're just not wanting to go to work, like if you've been off for 5 or 6 days and it's your first day to go back and you're like, I just don't want to go back. Like I need another day. I need another day, or I need another 2 days. That's probably a sign. Or if it gets to the point to where you have, I don't want to say anxiety, but you just don't want to go to work, or when you're at work, you just don't want to be there.
Yeah.
Like you're just not there. Like you're over it. You don't want to be there. You've been at work for 30 minutes and you're already fed up. You're probably burnt out.
Did you find that the facilities were helpful at all in terms of trying to prevent burnout or trying to make conditions? I mean, I know we talked about the nurse to patient staffing ratios and how those usually aren't very good, but have you worked at any facilities that try to give nurses the tools to avoid burnout or kind of support them in that manner? Or did you feel it was just like, you know what, I just want you to show up and get the job done and that's it?
I feel like facilities try to promote these things that surround like wellness, as far as like, oh, we're going to offer free like health coaching. We're going to offer free like dietitians to help you with nutrition. And we're going to set up a health center where you can go and do yoga or like a relaxation room. And that's cool. Like, that's nice. Yeah. Like that I appreciated that at some of the facilities I worked at in California. There was like a relaxation room that you could go to decompress. And like, that's great. But I think they need to focus more on, cause like, I'll give you an example. So like in California, you have dedicated break times to where you are on break, whether that's for you to eat or whether that's for you to just take a break in your 12-hour shift. Like those are allotted times that you have to take. On the East Coast, especially in the South, you do not have that. If you get to take a break, cool. If you don't, oh well. And that's just how it is. And like you have a phone, when you're in the hospital, the nurse has a phone that patients can call her, things can call her. In California, where I worked, they would take your phone. You don't get to have that during your break because you're actually on a break. Here, no. You have your phone the whole time. So patients can call you, charge nurse can call you, doctors can call you. Like you're never on break. And when you work in an environment like that constantly, where you don't actually have a break, during your 12 hours and I had to like eat in 10 minutes just to go back to work, all that leads to burnout also. Like, we don't want to admit that it does, but it does. It all plays into it. You can't like seriously sit down for 30 minutes just to decompress from the past 6 hours of your shift before you have to go do the next 6 hours. You know what I mean? Like, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Do you have friends and former colleagues that, you know, had a similar length of experience with you with nursing and have completely left nursing and gone into something else, or they've gone away from the bedside? Yeah. Yeah.
I have a few friends that have totally left. They've either gone back to school for nursing education, or like myself, I'm back in school for family nurse practitioner.
Okay.
Or they're doing health coaching, or a lot of them are doing cosmetic nursing. That's why I know a little bit about that. They've started their own businesses, but yeah, they've just left the hospital because of not even necessarily burnout, and then just the fact of realizing that they weren't going to get paid more. They weren't going to get proper recognition and what they felt like they deserved for as hard as they were working.
So in terms of self-care, so for somebody that is saying, you know what, I want to stay with bedside nursing. You know, I like it, but I recognize I am a bit burnt out. I mean, we talked about taking time off, but from your personal experience, what would you suggest just for like mini breaks, whether it is, you know, going hiking or trying a new hobby or something? What would you suggest for people saying, hey, Paula, I don't necessarily want to move away from the bedside. I know I need a little bit of a mini break. I'm having a hard time, you know, decoupling from the job during my off time. What can I do to kind of recharge the batteries with my days off or whatever? What would you suggest, or what have you gone through?
I would just encourage people to do, you know, what makes them happy outside of work, whether that's traveling, hiking, exercising, hanging out with your friends, you know, doing something different, like whatever sparks your interest, it brings you joy outside of work, then focus on those things. And for some people, it could just be staying at home and spending time with their loved ones and their significant others. Because I know, like, when I worked on night shift and my husband works day shift, there would be like 4 days where I didn't even see him. So maybe you just need 2 weeks at home so you can have a regular schedule with, you know, your husband or your significant other or your family, you know, and you want to see your kids every day instead of just 3 days out of the week. Maybe that's what you need. I don't, you know, it's different for everybody. You have to find what brings you joy and focus on that.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you're going to be able to bring yourself out of the sadness that burnout brings, is do what brings you joy and stimulate those things.
Well, you brought up an interesting term, which is focus. I think, and again, not having been a nurse, but certainly, you know, been around nursing now for a number of years, doing what I do, and having some family members that were nurses. You know, when you're on the job, you know, I know, as you were saying earlier, it's kind of your job to focus on the patient care. And particularly too, there's just an awful lot of responsibility. So you have to be on, and, you know, mistakes can really cause significant problems. And I would imagine it is hard to, even though you're physically not there, to, you know, stop focusing on that situation at work and focus on yourself and your family and focus on a hobby or doing something fun. I would imagine that, yeah, it's that even though you're physically not on the job, mentally you may be, and breaking that. Yeah.
That's a huge thing, you know, and that's one thing I'll say, that like, working out of the bedside setting, like working either doing telehealth or case management, I don't bring my work home with me like I did when I was a bedside nurse, because I know we actually don't bring our work home with us. But there's so many of us, I know I've done it hundreds of times, that have woken up in the middle of the night or in the middle of like making breakfast. I'll be like, oh my God, I forgot to give that med, or oh my God, I forgot to do this thing. I forgot to write this on my patient's board. Like so many times, because as a bedside nurse, you are juggling 1,000 tasks at once, and you're responsible for so many things for multiple people. It's not just like you have all these responsibilities for one patient.
Right.
You have that for 5, 6, 7 patients. So you have no choice but to bring it home with you. But now working outside the bedside, when I leave work for the day, I have left work for the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't bring any of that stuff home, and I don't stress about it because I have just come to the point to where I refuse to be stressed out about work in my home environment because it's just not good for me.
Well, and what you described is really it's scary to think about, because for the average person, right, if they forgot to do something, or they forgot to send an email, and they may the middle of the night wake up and say, oh boy, I forgot to send somebody an email. I can do it tomorrow, or whatever. You're talking about charting. You're talking about med. You're talking about patient care. I would imagine that burden of direct care is
and
crazy.
If it's something major, then the nurse from the previous shift, she will call you at home and ask you, why didn't you do this? This didn't get done. And then if you're going back to work the next day, a lot of times you'll have to go back and try to change it or fix it or address it. So it's just like, it's not a good time. And when you're burned out, you're going to make even more mistakes because like I said, you're so tired. So recognizing the fact that you're getting burned out, that you need a break, is key. And it's going to prevent you from making medication errors, any errors that's going to cause your patient harm. It's just important to recognize it and understand that it's something that you have to address and deal with it.
Well, it's certainly there have been a number of articles over the past year or so, not just about nursing, but just generally speaking about self-care and the aspect of just with a traditional job, right? More is not better. So if people are working, 70 hours a week, that doesn't mean they're more productive or anything at their regular job. And it's really talking about the self-care, being able to make sure you're physically healthy, make sure you're mentally healthy, make sure you're eating right, spending time with your family. That kind of work-life balance for a regular job is very important. I have to imagine it's just 10 times more important for a nurse.
It is. Yeah. And a lot of people, it used to crack me up because people always be like, oh, well, I don't understand how you don't have work-life balance. You only work 3 days a week. Yeah, I get it. We only work 3 days a week, but our shifts are 7 to 7, right? Yeah. But you're not actually working from 7 to 7 because you're usually getting to work at 6:30 and you're not leaving until sometimes 8 or 9 o'clock just to have to come back. So you're really working 14, 15-hour days, 3 days in a row, and then you probably get asked to pick up extra. So yeah, we work a whole week in 3 days, which the average person would not be able to do.
Nope.
With everything that you're trying to do. So
with everything you're trying to do and the pressure that's on you, it's just overwhelming. I will say this, it was an interesting article that I read. It was talking about nurse burnout, and it was back a few months ago, and talking about nurses that were leaving the profession. There was an article in CNN, and it was a woman who had been a nurse for a number of years, had been dealing, obviously with heavy duty COVID cases over the past few months, and it just kind of put her over the edge. And she and her husband and their 2 kids sold their home. She left nursing, and she went to live in, I believe, Kentucky, essentially in a log cabin. So she kind of went from being city life and working in a city environment to just saying, I'm burnt out. I've got to get away. And she needed to do it for herself. She needed to do it for her family, and she just really had a complete change in life and just moved to the woods of Kentucky. But the one thing that she did say was, which I thought was actually kind of sad, was that the guilt that she felt. So she felt like, as much as she needed to do this, there was something inside of her that actually felt guilty for leaving, but she knows she just said, I just could not do this anymore. But it just showed you the level of heart in her and care, the fact that she knew that she was really, her life was coming apart. She had to get out, but yet the guilt that she carried with her, it was heartbreaking, really.
Yeah, I think a lot of nurses feel that way because we're just such caring and compassionate individuals. We're always putting others before ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think guilt is a big thing. And like I said, I've even now, like the hospital that I used to work staff at is having like a big staffing shortage, and they have sent emails multiple times, looking for me to come back and for other nurses to come back. And it's not that I feel bad. I miss it sometimes. I miss that aspect of patient care and like working with really sick kids and like making a difference. Like I do miss that, but I don't miss the way that it used to make me feel.
Yeah.
Like I miss it, but I don't miss the way that it made me feel after a long period of time. And I know that's why I left it. That's why I needed a change to do something different. And then for me, it's like, as long as you find something where you're still making a difference, then you're going to be just as happy as you were doing that. And I found that with telehealth. I didn't think that I would, but I did. Like I helped so many patients, even though I was only talking to them over the phone. I helped so many patients that were either over medicating or not following the right instructions or needed help. And I had one lady call, her kid was having a seizure. She didn't know what to do. She was freaking out. So being able to be there and help her and help kids get to the emergency room when the parents didn't know what to do, all of those things, like you can still use your nursing knowledge. And I will say, as a telehealth nurse, you'd be surprised how much more of your assessment skills you actually use because you can't see the patient. You can't see them.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's not like when you walk in the room, you can see your patient and you automatically go, okay, I know you need this, this, and this. You can't see them. So you're totally reliant on them telling you this is what's wrong. You're totally reliant on like, okay, I have to think about if they have this. So I need to ask these questions to get the information that I need to properly get you the care that you need. So you'd be surprised like how much of a really good nurse that you can be without doing it in the hospital.
That's a really interesting perspective. Yeah, never thought about that. It gives you a chance to expand your skills in a different way. So, really interesting perspective. Well, Paula, the believe it or not, it's been about an hour. This has flown by. I have absolutely found this fascinating. There's been some great comments, and you really put a different perspective in terms of other opportunities away from bedside nursing for those that want to stay with nursing, but yet they don't necessarily want to be at the bedside, and perhaps they want to take a break. So this has been absolutely fabulous. We're going to bring Rachel back in here for a second, but I just want to thank you, Paula. Number one, for doing what you do as a nurse and all the experiences you've had. Thank you very much. I know it's been a really, we at the Gypsy Nurse know, even though we're not nurses, we know it's been a really, it's not an easy job anyway, but this last year or so has been incredibly hard on nurses. So we want to thank all of them. We want to thank you for what you do. Also want to thank you for your support of the Gypsy Nurse. Not only have you done a few of these, but you also, one of our Gypsy Nurse mentors, you answer questions that come in from the community, and you've been extremely generous with your time. So both Rachel and I want to thank you for all your support and everything you do for the Gypsy Nurse in our community. We've got 425,000 people across our website and all of our platforms. There's a lot of people out there that need great information like you just provided. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. I'm glad for you guys giving me the platform to get the information out to the nurses that really need it. I'm just happy to help anyone that I can.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Krista is giving you props. She says, thanks, Paula. Your perspective has been very informative. So there you go. Very, very helpful to people. So I hope we can have you back on at some other point. Congratulations on your recent wedding as well. Some good news there, right?
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So congratulations on that. But thank you for your time. You've been very generous, and we would love to have you back on again for other sessions. This was great perspective.
Yeah,
Of course.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, let's bring on Kevin. That was great. What did you think, Kevin?
That was awesome. Paula had some really, really great insight. Believe it or not, it was one of, and again, I followed along the conference all week, even, outside of being able to sponsor today. That was some really great insight. And you don't want to hear about nurses getting burnt out at all. You really don't. It's, you have a real soft spot to be very sensitive to that just because of all they do. And especially Steve, you mentioned it, what they're doing right now during this pandemic. And it's real and it's out there for them.
Yeah, it really is, and we see it a lot. And as you know, Kevin, our mission is really to support travel nurses on their journey, whether they're just getting started, they're halfway through their career, maybe they're finishing up, maybe they were, nursing in a more traditional staff environment and they decided to try travel nursing. I mean, we're really there to support them throughout their entire journey. But the unfortunate reality is, as we all know, number one, it's a tough job. There's no doubt about it. But number two, I think this past year has been incredibly tough on the industry. And despite, a lot of, folks trying to help nurses and trying to help them with, tools to use to prevent burnout and other opportunities and those sorts of things, the reality is there are nurses that are saying, I can't do this anymore. And not just people that are at, maybe towards the end of their career saying, hey, now's a good time to get out. There are others that just started and said, boy, this really isn't what I thought. And it's sad. And obviously the need for nurses continues to climb, but hopefully discussions like this, and great information that Paula has provided, can give nurses other opportunities, or think about ways to, perhaps take a break from a certain aspect of their career and then come back, or, there's all different aspects to it. But yeah, we try and provide articles and other types of content to, at least help people and help nurses put things in perspective and provide them with a measure of support. But it's a tough job.
Yeah, it is. And you guys do a great job of that. And, we've been a member of the Gypsy Nurse now for a couple of months, and, we plan on having a great relationship with you guys moving forward. But the resources that you have for nurses it's awesome. And it gives them a way to read some of those articles and be able to listen to nurses like Paula who can, give their story and potentially help another nurse out there. And, us at Nurses 24/7 and being able to kind of sponsor and introduce ourselves, a lot of what we do is really to cater to the nurse because we know how difficult their job is. And, a lot of those, off the bedside jobs we have on the Gypsy Nurse ourselves. And those are those vaccine jobs and those case management jobs. So, we have those options for nurses, and our recruiters, again, at Nurses 24/7, just like in a lot of other agencies, are really great about finding the job that works best for a nurse. And I think by doing that, we might eliminate some of that burnout. So, again, for Nurses 24/7, we had a great time today being able to sponsor the event. We're looking forward to just being able to do a lot more of these things. And continue to just introduce ourselves and being able to do what we can to help nurses out there, and being able to tell our story a little bit more and just continue to get educated and learn from you guys.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we're excited to have you on. You'll be able to join us in the next couple of months whenever you guys pick a date to go live with us. We look forward to that. So
yeah, we would love to. We have such valued people here at Nurses 24/7 who have done this for so many years, whether it be on the clinical side, like our chief nursing officer, or, I can't say enough about our CEO and our CEO. They are they're the backbone of this company. And I believe that having them, on and giving their wisdom and talking about some topics would really help the nursing community out there as well, too. And that's what we're all about, and trying to help. And looking forward to jumping on with you guys in the near future again, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
That sounds great. Well, Kevin, again, thank you for joining us for these sessions, and thank you for your sponsorship of today, as well as just the overall sponsorship of the Gypsy Nurse. So thank you to you and Nurses 24/7 for joining us. We appreciate it. Yeah, we look forward to having a live session with you guys soon. So awesome. Thank you for joining us. Stay warm.
Yeah, thank you guys. Right. Warmer days are ahead. Take care.
There we go. Thanks, Kevin.
That was wonderful. What a great session to end tonight. Lots of great stuff.
It really was. And Paula was absolutely fabulous. And she's been such a great supporter of the Gypsy Nurse, and has mentored a number of people through her answering some of the mentor related questions that come in from travel nurses. So for her to share that sort of perspective and very deep and thoughtful perspective, and sharing kind of, the ups and downs out there, I think is very important. So it was a great session.
Definitely. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for all of your comments and tuning in. We have one more day tomorrow. I can't believe how fast it went. I'm going to miss seeing your face every day, Steve.
Well, tomorrow we get to talk about traveling with pets and how to make a great cup of coffee. So I think those will be two fun topics for a Friday, right, Rachel?
Definitely. All right. Well, we will see you all tomorrow. Don't forget to register for the conference and on thegypsynurse.com.